Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a lineup of just absolutely disturbing and terrifying Dogman encounters. Before we jump into them, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's absolutely disturbing and terrifying encounters. Shall we? Today's first encounter. Back in the winter of 2001, my youngest son and I were on our way from Boise, Idaho to Medford, Oregon. We had taken a car trailer to his old place in Boise in order to haul his non-running Jeep to his new place in Medford. We hit an area of heavy snow in the southern Cascades around 2 in the morning. It took 45 minutes or so to get down the mountain. We had, of course, been drinking coffee to stay alert. About 25 miles west of the pass, it became obvious that the last few quarts of coffee had been drained. We stopped at a wide-open spot in the road near the summer tourist haunt, deserted in the winter. There's a gas station and an ice cream joint on the west side of the road, closed this time of the year, and no town or settlement within 30 miles. This is tall timber country and unsettled. Across the road is a small parking area for the ice cream joint. It is paved and about 200 feet wide and 80 feet deep. I pulled in, and as I stepped out with my .45 on my hip, it occurred to me in a flash that I grabbed my .590 Mossy. Would be good. As we walked to the far end of the area to be well off the road, the hair on my arms and my back of my neck stood on end. The area directly in front was open, with the depth of 50 yards and the width of 100. The night was clear and cold, 8 to 10 inches of snow on the ground, and with the moon almost full, so we could see quite well. While standing and taking a leak with my son about 15 feet to my right, I saw, as if it sprang from the earth in front of us across the open area, 10 or 12 creatures moving rapidly back and forth in sort of a thatch weave pattern. These things, not human men, were close to 7 feet tall, bipedal with long arms, medium-length gray fur, and damn fast on their feet. I brought up the shotgun and slid the safety off as my son was drawing his .45. I don't know if I can adequately explain the overwhelming feeling of menace, but here goes. I'd been operating on pure instinct since I had stepped from the pickup. The rotten feeling hit me in a split second before these things arrived. The feeling, instinct, was that we were prey and subject to a very bad death, and to be slaughtered and eaten. Not a logical process, gut feeling, and massively overwhelming. As they were moving about in front of us, more appeared and mixed among them, all the while running about fast in front of us. Son and I backing toward the truck, I wouldn't present my back to them, and some of them peeled off right and left in an encirclement movement. They were rolling in fast from the sides now. I could smell and feel their presence. We got to the truck loaded on adrenaline and ready to kill, as we both knew we were in grave danger. We peeled into the truck, locked the doors. I had keys out and ready. As my butt neared the seat, I had the engine lit and transmission in gear, gas pedal mashed in one motion. Adrenaline is great stuff. As we fled, something very close by let out an ululating scream of rage and pain. I believe one or more of the group had gotten really close to us in their pursuit, and I ran over the foot of one. Yeah, they were that close. We rolled onto the highway, and I told the son to watch the bed of the pickup as well as the trailer. He already was indexed to the rear with the shotgun. We hauled ass for at least 20 miles before the feeling of grave danger started to abate. The feeling that nailed both of us, as we discussed soon after, was one of being prey, and soon being slaughtered and eaten. I'm not easy led, and neither believe or disbelieve all the Bigfoot, ghost, and werewolf stuff. In fact, I'm skeptical. My son was speaking with a coworker about 6 months later who had grown up in Prospect, Oregon, about 30 miles south of Union Creek, where the incident took place. He asked Jake if he had ever heard of any strange going-ons in that area. Jake went ashy white and pretty much retold the above tale. He says to avoid that place at night. A family friend, a 25-year retired cop, not given to flights of fancy, and an excellent observer, had a tale very similar from a year before. I told my wife of the event, and of course, she looked at me at the beginning as though I had developed a third eye in the center of my forehead. That was from shock. She did believe me, but did not wish to hear any details. She said the tale gave her the chills. Me too, as I write this. Hair on the back of my neck and forearms are sticking up. I have not gone back to explore, and would not without a large group of shotgun and flamethrower-equipped men with me. My son and I are both sane, sober persons, and not taken to hysteria. We were very wide awake as things transpired. We saw and smelled what was there. As a sidebar, neither of us heard footfalls from the creature. They were silent until I heard one as we were getting the hell out of there. To my knowledge, and I have researched, there is nothing that matches these creatures unless one considers old legends and folk tales of were-creatures. To conclude, I have to fall back on Elmer Keith's famous line, "Hell, I was there." Today's second encounter. October 28th, 2010. Two men were walking in the woods near the Friendsview Manor in Newberg, Oregon, when they caught a glimpse of a weird two-legged creature running through a patch of grass to the left of the walking path. They were startled as it was running into the dark. About 5 minutes later, 100 yards up the path, they saw the thing run by again. This time, they could see that it had two skinny, dark legs, like the hind legs of a deer, forked forward at the knees. It was short, approximately waist level, and leaping, running farther onto the trail. It was dark, definitely not a person or a deer. The thing made no noise, and they only saw it for a second. Then, 2 days later, while playing disc golf at Ewing Young Course, on the wooded section of the course, two other men and one of the original witnesses saw a similar creature during the day. As they approached the number 10 hole from behind the basket, they saw the same thing. It had slick, greasy-looking black hair, like that of a dog, and the same forked legs at the knee. They couldn't see the face because a small tree blocked the view, but about 5 seconds of standing still, it hopped behind the tree and out of sight. When they went to look, it was gone. The source contacted a local pet owner who had once owned wallabies and stated that the last time they had any of them was 2 years ago. He also affirmed that he doubted that wallabies could survive in the climate during the winter. Now, as you know, wallabies look very similar to kangaroo. Kangaroos have a resemblance to the Dogman. I'm thinking what these guys saw is a juvenile or very young Dogman. What do you guys think? North Vancouver, September 2010. Witness suddenly heard some loud thumping sounds against a plastic garbage bin in the house. They figured a bear had gotten over the fence again. They peeked out of their curtains together and were shocked at what they saw. It was a creature standing on its hind legs. It had dark, shaggy fur, but it definitely wasn't a bear. It looked muscular and thin and had a snout like a coyote or a wolf. It ripped through their garbage. They think for the salmon bones and the carcass inside. It was grunting and growling quite a bit. They were completely petrified standing at the window. They wanted to look away, but at the same time, they were morbidly fascinated at what they were looking at. After about a minute or so, the creature ran to the back of their yard and jumped over the fence. The witnesses were convinced that they had seen some kind of werewolf-type creature. November 2009, Newport Beach, California. Gus was coming off of exit for the 133 road connector, and while he stopped at a light, he saw a group of 3 large four-legged creatures dash out from the trees along the road. He started second-guessing himself and tried to convince himself he was just seeing things. He made a left turn at the light, and while the speed limit was still 40 at this point, he looked up and almost pissed his pants. Those 3 beasts were running upright. The wolves, which seemed to be the most logical guess, were about 6.5 feet tall, and looked like they easily weighed 250 to 275. They had snouts and mouths that almost could have been expressive, being able to smile or frown. And the fur was dark, although there wasn't enough light to tell if it was dark brown or black. He was going at 45 miles an hour, and the giant wolves were keeping up with him with ease. He then literally put the pedal to the metal and sped up to 70. He was sweating profusely and having a panic attack. As he sped up to 70, the wolves stopped following him. Considering he was about to enter high-traffic part of the road, the wolf-like creature at the front seemed to stop on a dime and watch him drive off. He didn't hear any howls before or after this sighting. Today's 5th encounter. Alberta, Canada. On the evening, I have seen the hyena-like animal. I was small game hunting along a heavily wooded exploration trail that looked fruitful for rabbits. I generally hunt alone, but carry a shotgun because all too often during these often successful rabbit and grouse hunting journeys, black bear and occasional wolf packs are nearby, and a .22 rimfire is a poor caliber for self-protection here in northeast Alberta. During my hunting walk along this one west to east goat path, I noticed a turkey vulture was always overhead, and if you watched your 6, an owl always trailed me. This is very routine there. What was not, in my opinion, a routine thing was an unusual noise animal source never found. A constant coughing sound described best like a cat coughing up a fur ball, but no change in pitch, volume, or cadence. It sounded like a sound effect generated by a studio. Certainly, what animal has the lung capacity or vocal cords to generate this strange sound? This was almost more worrying than the sighting itself. On this day, I just came to the decision to ignore the sound and continue hunting. This particular forest trail had two small rises along my direction of travel to the east and over a second hump. A small game was more frequent seen, I think, because the main road was far enough away. That small animals felt safer there behind the second mound. Soon I heard what was larger than a rabbit just off to my right, and I was later than usual arriving there, and the daylight was rapidly fading. Thankfully, this was at the intersection of the two trails, and I seated myself on a large rock on the opposite side of the trail, and sat looking in its direction with my trusty shotgun across my lap. I felt very confident in my ability to protect myself, and I always kept two shotgun slugs really handy to swap out the bird shot in my over-under, just in case I had a bear encounter at close range. I seen this dog-like animal as it came around a huge tree. It had dog-like ears and a dog-like snout, but its front legs were certainly larger than its back. Never seen this before or since. Also appeared to have very muscular back and chest. Almost humpbacked to me. Was this a wolf with a deformed, broken back, or the now 10,000-year extinct American hyena? I don't know. And I've seen several wolves in the past, tons of coyote and fox, so I felt pretty qualified to speak about canine animals. Also, its incisors looked unnaturally long, and I think it had a grayish coat with some strange yellowish or red patches on its back. Very hard to confirm in the dusky light. Its eyes had a strange yellowish color to them. I was unsure whether to shoot it or not, but decided to leave the area immediately. I know well enough not to run as to appear to be prey to a predator, but kept loading my shotgun at a low ready just in case, stopping often to check my six, just like an infantry soldier on patrol. I left and never actually returned to that spot. On another occasion, I heard the large animal getting up in the woods at least twice in a totally different place, again while small game hunting. I had the distinct feeling I was being watched. This was near a registered trap line I later discovered was easy to find, an excuse not to return there. Some months later, I found two thoroughly mutilated calves and a cow someone really took their time with, again at a different location about 10 miles from here as the crow flies. The cow had an ear tag, and I reported it to the RCMP. They tell me in a later phone call this incident was forwarded to the local livestock inspector. I must say, perhaps just rustled cattle butchered right there, but seems stupid, as it is at a corner very busy forest road. Maybe a mutilation, maybe not. I just hope these strange occurrences are it for me. I had a recent health scare, and I don't need any more drama in my life. This next encounter is a subscriber's encounter that was in the comment section. I reached out to the person and asked them to please email me. I don't know if they saw the comment or not, but you will know who you are once you hear this encounter. Please contact me. I'd like you to come on the show and share this encounter with me and everybody else, please. I had an encounter when I was 15. I'm from Pike County, Kentucky. I was raised deep in the county in Canada, Kentucky. My encounter happened fast, but I got a clear look at what I thought was a werewolf. I really believed a neighbor was a werewolf for years. I told only a couple of people about it. I'm 38 now, but I was deer hunting in November. It was a cold day. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening, and it happened the same way as so many other stories I've heard. The woods went silent, and I felt a primal fear before ever seeing anything. I was hunting with a pump 12 gauge with slugs. but the fear was something I can't explain. I froze in place. I heard a limb break to my right at 50 to 60 yards, and it caught my eye. It was solid black with tan skin. I went back later with a friend, and we measured using a limb it walked under. It was over 7 feet, and it looked like 500 to 600 pounds. It never looked at me, but I know it knew I was there. It walked at an angle right to the left, and it looked like a bodybuilder. And shooting it never crossed my mind. It looked like the werewolf from Van Helsing with long pointy ears. I had slugs, and I don't think I could have done anything but piss it off. I was so scared and helpless. It's a life-changing experience. I don't know where these creatures come from, but they are built like Spartans, like they are ready for war, apex predators. I honestly don't know why it didn't pay any attention to me, but it somehow scared the fuck out of me with me seeing it. I just figured I'd tell my story because nobody knows about it other than my girlfriend and a couple of friends. But until you run into one, you can't imagine the true size of a dogman. I still hunt. I'm just more aware of what's going on. Our government and military know, and they hide it from us. Like I said before, you obviously know if you hear this and it's your encounter. Please reach out to me. My email is in the description below, or it's nadolny.m.jeff@gmail.com. Please, I'd love to have you on the show. Tonight's final encounter. Western Oklahoma, 1983. Since that winter day when he saw an animal he can't name, Billy Perry arms himself with a deer rifle whenever he goes across the creek to feed his hogs. Just a couple of days before the snow and ice melted that winter, Billy, a 15-year-old high school freshman, was scouting for coyote tracks along the Trail Creek near his home when a growl made him stop. The noise came from an animal standing on 2 legs about 20 yards from him. Frightened, the young hunter dashed to his parked car and drove away. It was 4 or 5 feet tall and pretty wide, said Perry. It stood upright, and it had kind of a reddish-brown hair color. Reports of an unidentified creature in western Oklahoma by the Perry family and others in Dewey County aren't the first in Oklahoma. In 1977, search parties were formed after similar sightings were reported in eastern Oklahoma, near Bristow and Stillwell. The Perry family says the animal prowled their property and near their home for more than a month that winter. It was an animal that only Billy saw clearly. An animal they say smelled like sewer. Hair samples found by Perry's house were sent to Hayden Hughes, director of Sasquatch Investigations of Mid-America. The hair sample looked very interesting. At this point, we can't confirm what kind of animal it came from, Mr. Hughes states. He said an investigative sample is being forwarded to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigative Forensic Lab in hopes for analysis. I feel it's just a matter of time before Bigfoot is captured alive. About a week later, Billy's 2-year-old sister, Melissa, became hysterical when she was frightened after seeing a bear in the window of her room. Mr. Perry and his son immediately got out their rifles and circled the house, each going a different way. They both smelled the odor like sewer, but they didn't see an animal. A few days later, while hunting for coyote, Perry heard a barking noise. And then he saw a coyote cross toward a strange animal. But he couldn't get a clear shot at it. When the coyote arrived at the place where the animal was barking, there was a short, terrible fight with growls and screams. The coyote only yipped a couple of times, he relates. There wasn't really much of a fight. The coyote didn't last long. The next day, Perry found the spot where something had made short work of that coyote. There were assortment mounts of coyote hair in the spot. the size of a card table. The animal had to be pretty quick, as he caught the coyote in the open place, and the visitor on Trail Creek came back again and again. Late one night, a heavy animal ran around the north corner of the house. Mrs. Perry was in the bedroom, and Perry was in the living room on the south end of the house watching a movie, when both of them heard the footsteps. The dogs all ran to meet at the one corner of the house, and they briefly tangled trying to get to it. After search, reddish-brown hair with a strong odor was found there. The following night, the animal staged a repeat performance. Again, it was late, and the sound of the animal running around the house woke Mrs. Perry. "If I hadn't been there and you had told me this story, I would have thought you were goofy," Mr. Perry said. In the meantime, Billy noticed a sewer odor around the pig pen and heard something crunching through the brush on a few occasions. Billy claimed he could smell the sewer odor stronger than the smell of the hogs. The next weekend, Mr. Perry, Billy, and several friends hunted for the animal. A repeat hunt was held on the Sunday. 7 or 8 men came out on Monday. I had to go to work, but they hunted. The hunts didn't turn up an animal, but Mr. Perry said tracks were found along the creek. A month and a half later, and a little more than 40 miles southwest as the crow flies, Alex Inman of Radin and his son-in-law, George Springer of Roger Mills, saw an animal they said they can't explain. The 2 men were feeding cattle southwest of Cheyenne on land that had been largely undisturbed by human habitation when they saw an animal that one of the men described as bigger and broader than a dog would be. The dark-haired animal didn't have much of a neck. Its head was pretty much set down on its shoulders. Mr. Inman stated it walked on all fours. The cattlemen pulled up in the pasture and started honking their pickup horn to call the cattle in to feed before they saw the animal. They only got a glimpse of it broadside before it headed directly away from them, he said. Springer said it didn't seem to be afraid of them, and it wasn't in a big hurry. They had plenty of time to get a look at it, even though it was quite a ways off. While moving off on all fours, it stood a foot taller than a coyote would be, and a hell of a lot wider. It didn't look like anything I had ever seen before. It was dark brown and wide. It wasn't fuzzy or furry, but slick-haired, like a pig. It was kind of smooth moving. It didn't bounce anyway. It was fluid. It was pretty heavy and had a pretty big body. The 2 men watched the animal until it disappeared into the heavy brush. People won't mention seeing things for fear of being laughed at. Genevieve Sasser of Cheyenne. But she says that about 5 or 6 years ago something was digging at the foundation of her home near Cheyenne one night. No one dared to venture out and see what it was. She says growl and angry noises came from the animal, and it went to the kitchen window where the light was on. She said she turned the light out and another one on. The animal left the dark window and came to the lighted one, she added. The next morning, Mrs. Sasser checked for tracks. The animal had tried to dig under the foundation instead of trying to get in the window. The tracks were like dogs, but as big as a man's hand, she says. No claw marks showed in the tracks, but claw marks did show where the animal dug against the house. Whatever it was, it finally gave up and went away. Her dogs didn't challenge the animal, they just took off. It makes me wonder what is out there. They need to find out what is going on. Other people, like Mrs. Sasser, say they would like to know for sure what lives in the creeks and canyons of western Oklahoma. All right, folks, what an absolute lineup of just disturbing encounters. That last experience where they're talking about people are wondering about what lurks in the caves and crevices of Oklahoma and whatnot. I don't think it's just Oklahoma. I think to be frank with you all, I think that a lot of these caves and kind of, I don't know if you want to even call them tunnels, because, some are geologically made, some are carved out by, well, we don't really know, Dogman, who knows, but reptilian. I think that a lot of these cave systems just connect, and I think that it's like a spider web underneath the layer of the earth that we live upon. I mean, people do think, oh yeah, there's, tunnels and caves and, these things. But I think it is more expansive than we even realize. And quite honestly, I've been thinking about what if, every once in a while or periodically, I think I can count at least or no more than 50 portal kind of experiences that I've heard. And that being first and second hand. But I think that a lot of these portals are underground. I wonder, and this brings me back to the live stream last night. We were all talking, and a sub had brought up how her stepdad was in the Vietnam War, just like my dad, and probably many of your parents. My dad was part of the Brown Navy, and he actually does recall times shooting into the jungle at something that was not shooting bullets at them, but throwing rocks. A couple of his buddies said they had seen them, and they were, bipedally hairy creatures, but my dad had never seen one. What he saw was rocks getting thrown. And it makes me think about, like, what about these Viet Cong that lived in these expansive tunnels under Vietnam? I wonder how many times just accidentally they ran into something. Because I was watching something a couple months back, and it was talking about how many of the tunnels were dug without light. And these little kids would be playing in the dark and stuff like that, with poisonous snakes lurking around them and other things. Just imagine Dogman, Rock Ape, Reptilian lurking in these underground villages where your kids would be playing, and unbelievable. Anyway, guys, I had a blast. I always do. I love sharing experiences with you guys. I like hearing your guys' experiences. I'm going to do a kind of an update a little bit later on today on a couple of things that I want to address about the channel and some things. So, yeah. Anyway, with that, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Your support is honestly what makes this channel special and what continues to make it grow and go. This channel would not be what it is without you guys. You guys truly are the heart and soul of it. There's nothing that I do except share experiences. You guys are the ones that share it with me. And then you share the videos with others. You listen, you like, you communicate with each other. It's awesome. It really is like a little community here. Thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help someone that you love or care about's life someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions and never stop searching for those answers.